Sydney Ferries is set to be privatised as the coalition moves to make good on an election promise. The former state government first floated the idea but abandoned it after union pressure. The O'Farrell government says privatisation will improve and expand current services. But the opposition and unions warn it would lead to job cuts and higher fares. Mark Tobin reports.
There is Sydney as the harbour they sail on, but the Premier says Sydney ferry services are not up to scratch.
Sydney Harbour is an icon. It's the most beautiful harbour in the world, and we're determined to provide to commuters the world-class services that they deserve.
The government promised before the election that it would call for expressions of interest to run Sydney ferries.
The government will always subsidise public transport. This doesn't change that. All it does is that it says that we accept and we acknowledge that the private sector can run Sydney Ferries management operations more efficiently than what is happening today.
Under the plan, a private company will operate and maintain Sydney ferries, but the fleet will still be owned by the government, which will also continue to have control over fares and routes. But the opposition says it's a sad day with the service being auctioned off to the highest bidder.
We are going to see job cuts, service cuts, or we're going to see increases in fares.
The plan to privatise Sydney ferries isn't new. In 2007, an independent inquiry recommended a private operator be appointed. The Labor government seriously considered it, but Premier Keneally walked away from the idea after enormous pressure from unions. The government says unions have been consulted this time, but there's no guarantee for the 600-strong workforce.
And in our discussions we said anybody who is skilled and works hard will have a place working at Sydney Ferries.
The government expects a private company to be operating Sydney Ferries by the end of next year. Mark Tobin, ABC News.
There's been a debate in State Parliament tonight about the controversial Barangaroo development on the Sydney Harbour foreshore. The new state government had promised to discuss any issue attracting a petition of more than 10,000 signatures. Last week, the Sydney MP Clover presented one demanding an end to works at Barangaroo and a review of the Environmental Planning and Assessment Act.
The project so far has been railroaded under a secretive planning process that has lacked accountability and transparency.
The state government has promised to clean up the site in accordance with state planning laws.
This government will ensure there is absolute transparency about this process.
In a separate development, the state government's ordered the Barangaroo Development Authority to begin negotiations with its critics ahead of a court case next week.